Still from Parshas Re'eh, but we'll go first into Parshas Shoftim a little bit.
Shoftim v'Shoftim.
Shoftim v'Shoftim. Okay, we don't have a Chumash, but let's go. No, it's okay. It's okay. Shoftim v'Shoftim titin l'chol. This week's Parsha. It says Shoftim v'Shoftim. What are Shoftim? Judges. What are Shoftim? Enforcement.
Policemen.
Policemen. To have a judge without a policeman doesn't work. It doesn't work. Because the judge can only rule, but someone has to enforce the rules. So you have Shoftim v'Shoftim. Then it says, Lo satem mishpat, don't pervert justice. That means, look at the instructions. The instructions are very, very clear. Parsha Shoftim. It says, Shoftim v'Shoftim titin l'chol v'chol shorecha. You should put judges and enforcement in every one of your cities that Hashem will give you. V'shoftim za'om mishpat tzedek, and you should judge honestly, righteously.
Yeah, don't take the money.
Lo satem mishpat, don't pervert justice. That means don't change the rules. Lo sakir ponim, don't show favoritism to someone who's your friend or someone who's a politician or important. V'lo sikach shochad, don't take bribes. Ki ha-shochad ya'aver eni chachomim, the shochad blinds the eyes of wise people. V'salef divrei tzadikim. But if I give you a bribe, even though you want to do the right thing, and even though you think you're going to be able to do the right thing, the fact that I gave you a bribe, your thinking is going to be affected. It's a gezeras hakosov almost. It's almost as if, as much as you think you can control, you can't control it. Okay? That's what it tells you. Now, it's interesting that in Parshas Mishpatim, when it talks about not taking bribes, it says, Ki ha-shochad ya'aver pichim. The shochad blinds smart people. Bribery. So here it says bribery makes smart, chachamim, people who know Shulchan Aruch, it makes them blind. And in Mishpatim it says it even makes blind smart people. So what is it? What are we talking about? So there's a famous insight from the Vilna Gaon. Very, very wonderful insight. The Vilna Gaon says every Jewish judge has to have two qualities. He has to know the laws of the Torah, the Shulchan Aruch, because the Shulchan Aruch rules are very different than maybe what you think or civil law is. But the second thing the Vilna Gaon says is he has to be street smart, b'mili the alma. That means if you have a judge, and the judge says, I don't know what Facebook is. I've never used the internet. I don't know what it means, Twitter. He might be the smartest man in the world. He might know all of Shulchan Aruch, but he's not a judge. That's what the Vilna Gaon says. He can't be a judge. He's got to understand the stock market. He's got to understand what's going on in the world. He's got to understand what's happening in France and Iraq and Iran and Brexit and everything else. He has to understand the world. Because when you judge a case about monetary obligations and responsibilities, you have to be knowledgeable. You have to be all around.
Good background.
So that's what. So the Vilna Gaon says that when it refers to taking bribes, it refers to two types of people. Chachamim, those are Shulchan Aruch smart. And then it says pichim, regular smart people. People who know science, people who know biology, who knows physics. You have to know the world knowledge. That's what the Vilna Gaon says. They bring down a story with the Brisker Rov that a Russian official said to him, our laws are better than your laws. He says, why? He says, when a person gives a bribe, both are guilty. The guy who gives and the guy who takes. According to the Torah, the guy who gives, right? Nothing happens to him. It's only the guy who takes. So the Brisker Rov says, your laws, the reason why they don't work is because the guy who gives is afraid to confess that he gave because he'll go to jail. At least by us, The guy who gives can always turn around on you and say, by the way, I gave him a bribe. He doesn't go to jail. So your judges, the minute they take a bribe, they feel safe, because the guy who gave can't change his mind. He'll go to jail. By us, the guy can change his mind and can expose the judge. So he says our laws are very different in ways that protect the Torah a little bit more. That was the Brisker Rov's.
By Torah, boss is.
No, only the one who takes the bribe. The one who offers a bribe doesn't violate the Torah. He can offer, you just can't take. Now, there's a Gemara, there's an interesting Gemara, which we're going to go into, just skip a little bit ahead. There's an interesting Gemara that Rabbi Ephraim brings down. The Gemara says, when it talks about bribery, it talks all about different types of bribery. It's not always about money. So the Gemara, it's Gemara in Ksuvas that talks about bribery. So he says, bribery does not only refer to money. It could also mean flattery. It could also mean a lot of different things, as I've told you many times. He says, a Maimar was once sitting in court, and a person came over to him and says, you have a feather in your cap. Let me brush your cap, your hat. Then a Maimar said, what can I do for you? He says, I have a court case today. I think you're going to be one of the judges. He says, I can't be one of the judges. You clean my hat, that's it, I'm possible. That's what Maimar said. Shmuel was crossing a bridge, and the bridge was one of these old rickety bridges, and there was someone there who says, here, let me give you a hand, let me help you across. He helped him across. He says, where are you going? He says, I'm going to the Beit Din of Shmuel, I have a case today. He says, well, I'm not going to be able to be there. You help me across the bridge.
You gotta be hesitant.
Yeah, another person was paid off a bill early. He was a renter or whatever, he paid off a bill early. So Rav Pam, when he brought down this Gemara, he says, really? Were the Chachamim so fickle, so delicate, the person brushes off your hat, that's it? You can't judge a case anymore? I mean, you're so easily influenced. So Rav Pam says that the problem is that we don't understand what it means, hakarat hatov. Thank you. I mean, the person does you a favor. We don't even recognize it as a favor. We don't even appreciate the favor. He says the Gemara is telling you that the Chachamim appreciated the favors very, very much. And because the favors meant so much, they felt so much in debt to the person that they no longer could judge a case. The reason why we don't feel that way is because we don't appreciate hakarat hatov. We don't know what it means to say thank you. If we understood what it means to say thank you, then we would also feel that way. So I found that to be very, very interesting. This last week, I don't know if you remember, we talked about it a little bit. Rabbi Reuven Feinstein's wife passed away. Her name was Sheila Feinstein. He lived in Staten Island. Moshe Feinstein had a few children. Two of his sons, Reb David Feinstein, took over the yeshiva in the Lower East Side, and Reb Reuven Feinstein has a yeshiva in Staten Island. And his wife passed away. She was in a car accident, and eventually she got an infection in the hospital, and she passed away. So my brother-in-law wanted to be Menachem Oval. So when he was sitting around the table there with the family, he asked the family, was there any story that they remember involving Mrs. Feinstein, Rebbetzin Feinstein, that really stuck out in their mind? So they said, you know what, there is a story. Let me tell you the story. He says that there was a teacher in one of the schools in Staten Island who was late to work. So he was driving maybe a little bit faster than he should have. And there was a car stopped at a red light. The driver was not Jewish, and he couldn't stop in time, and boom, he rear-ended the car in front of him and damaged the bumper, the back of the car. So the guy gets out, the Rebbe, gets out and he says, listen, I'm so sorry. I know it's my fault. You were stopped at a red light. I rear-ended you. I was in a hurry. I was late for school. I'm going to get an estimate. I'm going to pay for it. Don't worry. Okay. She goes ahead. She gets an estimate. Let's say the estimate is $1,500. He says, I think the estimate's a little bit high. Let me go to my mechanic and see if I can get a cheaper estimate, but I promise you the car will be fixed 100%.
Who said
He said-
Goy or Jewish?
The Jewish guy. So she said, okay, goes to ask your guy, and he asks his guy, and his guy says, I can do it for $1,000. Great. The guy goes over to this woman, says, okay, my guy says he can do it for $1,000. The problem is I'm a teacher, and my salary is very limited, so I don't have $1,000 to pay. I can pay every month $250, and over 4 months I'll be able to pay it off. He says, no problem. She goes, gets the car fixed, she pays the $1,000, and every month he gives her $250. After 4 months, when he gives her the last check, he says to this woman, who he doesn't know, a not Jewish woman, he says to her, I have just one question to ask you. Okay, why did you trust me? That means if I go to the store and I give them a $20 bill, you know what they do? They hold it up to the light, they put it through a machine, then they put yellow marker all over it. That's a $20 bill. Here, to fix a car cost $1,000. I didn't have the money. I told you over 4 months I was going to pay it, and I did pay it. But you didn't ask anything. You didn't say, what's your name? Who are your references? Who are your co-signers? I mean, why did you trust me? So the lady says, I've lived in Staten Island most of my life. There's only one Jewish person that I know, is Mrs. Feinstein. And I understand you know her. If you're a member of her tribe, that's what she says, a member of her tribe, I know you could be trusted. And that's one of the stories that they said to my brother-in-law, like one of their favorite stories. He says, when Yonah was on the boat, so what was happening? The ocean was in turmoil. The captain of the boat, you know what he noticed? All the other boats on the ocean, everything was calm. Nothing was going wrong. His boat was being turned upside down, tossed and turned. So he wants to know, whose fault is it? What's going on? So eventually, he sees Yonah. So what does he say to Yonah? Vayomer Elo, he says to Yonah, Hagida no lono, please tell us, Ma malatecha, what's your job? What do you do? Ume'ayin tova, where do you come from? Ma artzecha, what country do you live in? Ve'emi ze omato, and what nation do you belong to? Like he asked him 10 questions. What did Yonah answer him? Ivri anochi, I'm a Jew, and I fear Hashem. That wasn't an answer to the question. I asked you what's your job, where you come from, where you're going, what you do. I mean, I asked him 10 questions, and what's his answer? I'm a Jew. I fear God. As if that says it all. And the truth is, it does say it all. That means a Jew has to walk around this world with the understanding, I have an obligation. That everything I do reflects Hashem. Why? Because Ivri Anochi, I'm a Jew. And because I'm Jewish, everything I do reflects Hashem. I had an accident, I'll make good on it. Why should this person trust me? The person should trust me because I said to the person, I'm a Jew. And she knew a Jew. She knew Sheila Feinstein. And she knew that Rebbe Feinstein had represented a certain standard. And therefore she said, if you are part of her group, then I assume you have the same standard. If you have the same standard, I have no questions. I'm not going to hold up your $20 bill. You tell me you're going to pay me. You tell me you're going to pay me over 4 months. I believe you. It's a fascinating story when it comes to the world. There is something that the Vilna Gaon writes, very interesting. He writes it in a sefer called Evan Shlema, which he wrote, in chapter 10, number 22. Look what he writes. He says, Ba'ayin, in the human eye, Roshum kol ha'olam v'chol asher bo. The eye sees every day the world. Everything the eye sees is recorded in the eye. It's almost as if the eye has like a little chip. And that chip records everything. V'chol masha oseh tov or ra, everything you do, good or bad, Nirsham ba'osam b'chashav ba'ayin is recorded in that section of the eye that handles recordings. B'tzuros of the yukto, in exact detail. And after 120, Hashem doesn't say to you, why'd you do this, why'd you do that? Hashem says, we're just going to play back the record. And they play back your whole life. Fast forward. And you see everything you did. And then, there you go. Your mitzvahs are there, your aveiros are there, everything is there. The Vilna Gaon talks about, as it comes Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and a person has to think back over the past year. He says, I got news for you. Even what you forget, the eye doesn't forget. Now, there was a sefer, I think Shoel Meshiv. There are halachic svarim that talk about that in Europe, when there was a crime committed, like a murder, and the authorities didn't know who did it, they went to one of the rabbis, and one of the rabbis said, go to the victim and open up his eye and look at his eye. You might get a picture of the murderer. The last thing he saw before he died was the murderer. And they saw a picture of the murderer, that they had a suspect, and the picture of the eye matched the suspect, and the guy confessed and convicted him. And it's brought down in many of the halachic svarim that if a murderer, like we have the Egla Arufa, where the bugs, the ants crawl to the murderer, he says that sometimes the eye catches the very, very last thing that the person saw. And because the person sees, the very last thing the person sees is caught in the eye, if you look at the eye, you can sometimes know who the murderer is. I don't know how that would work today. Today in New York, thank God, has cameras everywhere, and someone commits a murder, on television, they show you the video, and it's almost impossible now. Sometimes you can't.
How you can see the...
I have no idea. With a magnifying glass, sometimes there's an image or whatever. It was bizarre.
I heard about it when I was a child, but I thought it's like a fairy tale.
Maybe it is, but it's brought down. It's brought down to the swarm.
It's happened like this last month.
Okay. Another thing on Yom Kippur, I saw this Rabbi Glassing talks about this. On Yom Kippur, when you sprinkle the blood, right?
Yeah.
So the Kohen Gadol sprinkles the blood. So what does he do? He counts. He goes 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1 up, and 6. 1 up, 7. So it's a little bit of a strange way of counting. 1, 1, 1, 2. Very strange way. So he brings out something very, very interesting. He says, a person has a Yetzer Tov and a Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Tov has one name, the Yetzer Tov, your good counsel. The Satan, the Yetzer Hara, has how many names? 7. What are their names? Let's go.
Yetzer Hara?
Yeah, your Yetzer Hara has 7 names. It says, Dorish Rav Uvi, Aviro, and Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Shiva Shemesh Yesh Yetzer Hara. Hashem calls him Ra. Ki Yetzer Lev Ha'odam Ra Min Urav. Moshe calls him Oral, you uncircumcised person. David calls him Tomei. Shalev Torah Bor Eliakim. Shlomo calls him Sona, my enemy. It talks about the enemy. Yeshayahu called him the stumbling block. Yecheskel called him a rock. I'll remove the rock from your heart. So he says you have 7 different names. So what we do is, when we sprinkle the blood, he says 1 above, that's the Yetzer Tov. And he counts 1, 2, and that helps you fight all 7 Yetzer Haras. And it's interesting that Shlomo in Mishlei says that a tzaddik, even if he falls 7 times, he gets a why 7? Because there's 7 Yetzer Haras. The Yetzer Hara has 7 different names. So, there's over and over, we deal with the Yetzer Hara as best we can, to deal with what's going on. Okay, let's go a little bit further. We're going to skip around a little bit. We're going to go some very difficult sections in Parshas Shoftim. In the middle of Parshas Shoftim, we talk about battle, the rules of war. Okay? And we're going to talk about this next week a little bit more. But look what the rules of war. It says, a few different rules. But here you are, you're an army, and you're ready to go into battle. So then the judges or the general comes and he addresses the troops. V'omer aleim, Shema Yisrael. Hear Israel. That means even the schus of Shema Yisrael will protect you. Atem karevi mayom la'milchamo al oivechem. You're about to go into war against your enemy. Don't be afraid. Hashem is with us. We're going to win. However, there are certain people who are permitted to go home. For example, whoever built a house but hasn't had a chance to move in, didn't put up the mezuzah, didn't move in, you can go home. Why? Because you might die in this war, and someone else will live in your house. Now, what should the guy who's a soldier on the front be afraid of? Someone living in this house or dying? Dying. He's not afraid about dying. It's dying I can live with. But knowing that someone is going to move into the house that it took me 5 years to build, I can't live with. I have a divorce case where the wife wants the house. The husband is going to give her the house instead of the business. It's a whole exchange. The husband said to the wife, if you die first, then the house should come back to me. And she said, no. If I die first, I'm going to get rid of the house any way I want. There's one thing for sure, it's never going back to you. What do you care? You're dead. Even after I'm dead in the grave, I don't want you in the house. You know, and it's strange. Here's a guy, he's about to go into war. You might die. He says, that's okay. I don't mind. But if you die, someone will move into your house. What? I can't, no. Someone's going to move into my house? Can I go home? You can go home. Look at the next one. Person planted a vineyard, but didn't, first time, a farmer, brand new, he planted a brand new crop, he never tasted it before. You can go home also. Why? Because you might die and someone else will eat your grapes. Is he afraid of dying? No. Someone eating his grapes, that bothers him. He can't live with him.
Because it's
Okay.
effort.
Effort. Then comes the third one, which is the most shocking of them all.
Why?
You got engaged, but you didn't marry her yet. Right? So you can go home because you might die in war and someone else will marry her.
Yes. You go back. Somebody come. You're not enjoy, somebody can enjoy it.
So you know that he's going back because he hasn't been married yet. Because if he was married, would he go back?
No.
No, he would die in war. He wouldn't care. Someone asked Official Schechter something, is a mosquito male or female?
Very good.
So he said, let's see, it annoys you at night, buzzes in your ear, and sucks your blood.
Female.
Must be female. Sorry, my wife said it wasn't funny. I see your wife agrees. It wasn't funny. Anyway, look at this. The guy is engaged, and he didn't marry her yet, so the general says, you can also go home. But Rashi is unbelievable. Look what Rashi says over here. Rashi says, you should go home, because if you decide to stay and you don't listen to the general, to the Kohen, you deserve to die.
Wow.
Now, that's unusual. I built a house. The Kohen, the general says, oh, if you built a house, you didn't move in yet, you can go home. If I say, you know what, I'm going to stay anyway, I don't care about the house. Am I allowed to stay? Yes. If I planted a vineyard and I didn't cut it yet, didn't enjoy the fruit, but I want to stay in the war, I want to fight with my brothers, can I stay? Yes. But number 3, I'm engaged to get married. And I say, I want to stay and fight.
Privarivya.
Rashi says, you deserve to die,
Yeah,
because you didn't go back.
mitzvah privarivya.
So it's not because of the mitzvah period. The answer is a little bit different, they say. The answer is, in the first case, I built a house. If I don't go home and live in the house, who am I hurting? The house? No.
No, you
It's
had
myself.
Yeah.
The vineyard, myself. But if you have a wife that you're engaged to, a woman you're engaged to, and you decide to stay, your decision is affecting her. That you have no right to do. That means I can make a decision when it affects only me. But if I make a decision, and my decision affects not just me, but somebody else, and I don't ask that person what you think, and I don't get her opinion, and I don't respect her opinion, I deserve to die in the war.
Wow.
It's a fascinating answer.
Selfishness.
What?
It's called
It's called selfish. You're right. You want to make a decision. If it only affects you, I got it. But if you make decisions that affect you and other people, and you do it without consulting them, without asking them their thoughts, then that is selfish. And for that, it will not protect you. You'll fall victim. You could fall victim to whatever is going to happen. So it's a fascinating answer from Rashi. Very fascinating answer. Okay, let's go a little bit further. There's a Imperich Ches over here, Pasuk Ches Tes in Yud. Look what it talks about. Very unusual, very, very unusual. Let's see if we have it over here. Perich Ches. Let's see if we can get to it. I can find it over here. Perich Yud Ches, probably. Perich Yud Tes, I'm sorry, 19. Here we go. It talks about the Ir Miklot. So, how many Ir Miklots were there? How many cities of refuge were there?
6.
There were 6. 3 on this side of the Jordan, 3 on this side of the Jordan. Who went to these cities of refuge? People who killed someone accidentally. Then the Torah says as follows: V'im yachiv Hashem elokecha es gvulcha. When Mashiach comes, and Hashem makes your boundaries greater, larger, you should add 3 more cities of refuge. So when Mashiach comes, instead of 6 cities of refuge, there's going to be 9. There's only one problem. When Mashiach comes, no one's dying. So why do we need cities of refuge? And not only don't I need 3 more, I don't need the original 6 either. And this is a problem that they grapple with. They talk about this, that when Mashiach comes, all of a sudden I'm going to need 3 more cities. They're trying to figure out, why would I need 6 more cities? It doesn't make any sense. I should need less cities, not more. So, let's talk about some of the answers that are given. They're fascinating answers. He says, first of all, when Mashiach comes, all the non-Jewish people in the world are going to become Jewish, right? They all want to embrace Mashiach. He says, Mashiach will protect the Jewish people, that there won't be any death. But he doesn't protect the non-Jewish people right away. That only comes over time. So if you're going to have millions of non-Jewish people, you're going to need 3 more cities. That's what the Maskil David says and the Chassam Sofer says. He says, the Ber Yitzchak says, Mashiach will protect Talmidei Chachamim, but not ignorant people. Ignorant people can fall prey and therefore need the cities of refuge. Some people say it depends when Mashiach comes. If Mashiach comes early, then we're just not ready. Hashem had to bring Mashiach early because the world was in such bad shape, we'll need the cities of refuge. So that's another answer that there's given. But I found an interesting answer. Mashiach comes. Now, everybody who died in the last 2,000 years comes back to life. In those 2,000 years, there could be thousands of people who committed murder or death accidentally and never went to the city of refuge because they didn't exist. So they come back to life, and all their averos were forgiven, except they took a life instantly. They were in a car accident and they killed someone accidentally 200 years ago. Or they were in some war, some battle. So they have to go to the city Ir Miklat for a short amount of time. I don't know how long, because there's no Kohen Gadol that's going to die. But they have to go, he says, for a short amount of time. So you're going to need 3 more cities. You're not going to have enough to be able to do that. You're going to need 3 more cities in order to cover all the death, in order all the people who die. So I found that to be very, very interesting. Okay, next. In this week's Parsha, we talk about witnesses. Okay. How many witnesses do you need in capital cases? 2. Now, 3 are like 2, 2 are like 3, 2. That means before you can judge a person, 2 witnesses have to say, we saw Reuven kill Shimon.
At least 2.
At least 2.
Could be more.
Could be more, but at least 2. Okay? Now we have a very unusual halacha. 2 witnesses come and they say, we saw Reuven kill Shimon. The Beis Din examines the witnesses and they come to the conclusion Reuven is guilty. Ready to kill him. But before they kill him, 2 more witnesses come to the Beis Din. And you know what they say? They say, you 2 guys, how could you see that Reuven killed Shimon on Wednesday, July 20th? Wednesday, July 20th, you were with us on a trip to Disneyland. So we don't know whether Reuven killed Shimon or not. Maybe he did, maybe he did. We don't know.
How do you know?
But we know that the day you say you saw it, you were with, we have pictures of you in Disneyland with us. What's the halacha?
Third one.
What?
Third person?
No. The halacha is these 2 witnesses, since they wanted to kill him, they get killed. Now that's shocking, because really it's 2 against 2. We say he killed him. We say you were with us. It's 2 against 2. So why do you believe these 2 over these 2? I mean, well, they should just cancel each other out. So it's a gezeras hakasuv.
So why how we know that they are true? They don't.
Right?
Truth.
We don't. But the answer they give is a very interesting answer. That the guy that they accuse, he's screaming, I'm innocent, I'm innocent, I'm innocent. So technically, him together with these 2 make 3 against 2. What happens if they carry out the judgment and they kill the guy? And then these 2 come and say, hey guys, what did you just do? You killed him. You were no good witnesses. You were with us in Disney World. What's the halacha? Nothing.
Nobody.
Nothing. If they carried out the crime, the punishment, you know what we say? He probably deserved to die anyway. Maybe he didn't commit this murder, but he committed some other murder. Because if Hashem felt he should have lived, he would have sent the witnesses on time. The fact that the 2 witnesses came after they killed him already is proof that he deserves to die. And that's very amazing. The halacha is called Eidin Zomamim. It's all in the word Makos. It's in the Torah. Kasher Zoma. You do to them what they wanted to do, but not what they did to. You know, if they carry out the judgment, boom, it's too late. Now you see here in court, we have case after case. Many times you read about it in the newspapers where someone is in jail, and it comes out that the eyewitness was wrong. The DNA doesn't match. They say eyewitness testimony. When people say, I saw this, is sometimes the most unreliable testimony. Science is reliable. Eyewitness testimony, you can plant a thought. I'm reading a book on how to talk to your children, how your children talk to you back and forth, and it was from a psychiatrist, you know, with all these abuse cases. So they talk about, kids don't lie. And this guy says kids lie all the time. You know, if you ever had kids, you know one thing, kids lie all the time. He says there was like a 5-year-old, a class of 5-year-olds, like 35-year-olds in the class. And they had a guy walk into the classroom, walk around like this, and walk out. That's all he did. The next day, the teacher went to the back of the classroom and pulled out one of the stuffed animals, the bear. Says, look at the bear. His hand is ripped out. Did anybody see who did that? No. Did you see that guy that walked in the classroom and said, Mr. Levy, did he touch the bear? The next day, she looks at the bear again. Boy, how could this happen? Did Mr. Levy touch the bear? After the 3rd day, she asked the class, how many people saw Mr. Levy rip the hand of the bear? 3/4 of the class raised their hand. And they swore, we saw him do it. And all he did was walk in the classroom like this. You plant a thought. So this is a book that I was reading over Shabbos, you know, because I'm dealing, you know, with divorce and we're talking about parental alienation. He says you cannot believe how you plant an idea in a person's mind. You don't even realize that you're planting it, and they don't even realize it's being planted. And before long, they're swearing that something horrible happened and never happened. So he says, the witnesses are the most unreliable people in the world. Eyewitnesses are the most unreliable. But, here you have this Eid Zomim, and it's such a fascinating halacha where you believe that nothing would have happened in the Beis Din if not that Hashem wanted it to happen. So therefore, if it happened and they killed him, it must be a reason why they killed him. They must have deserved to die. And yet, if the witnesses come before they kill him, these two guys get killed because they tried to kill another person. So they are considered like murderers because they tried to kill another person. It's one of the Gezeros HaKasos. Next, it says in the Torah, Al Pi Torah Asher Yerucha. You have to follow what the Chachamim say. Al Mishpat Asher Yomu Lecha Ta'aseh. Whatever they tell you should do, you should do. You shouldn't go left to right. That means even if they tell you your right hand is your left hand and your left hand is your right hand and you know it's not true, they're right, you're wrong. From here we learn out that whatever the Chachamim say is a mitzvah in the Torah.
That's true.
So therefore, Chanukah, which is only midrabanan, we can still make a bracha, Asher ki nishana b'mitzvah v'tzivanu. What did you command us to light Chanukah candles? Because it says do whatever the Chachamim say. So he says, there was a couple that was getting married in Israel, and they had very little money between them. And the families felt very, very bad that they couldn't afford to buy them an apartment. They felt very, very bad. So they went to one of the Rabbanim there, and Rabbi Zilberstein brings the story down, and they asked one of the Rabbanim, what should we do? He says, how much money do you have? He says, we have $40,000. So he says, $40,000, buy an apartment. So the family said to the Rabbi says, maybe you don't know how much apartments cost in Bnei Brak, but they cost $150,000. You can't buy anything for $40,000. He says, trust me, go out there, speak to some real estate agents, buy something for $40,000. Young couple getting married. They looked at the rabbi as if the rabbi was, off the wall, not in this world.
Something wrong with the Zama.
Right? The parents, as well as the chassan and kala, though, had no doubt that he was a tzaddik, but he didn't know what he was lying about, but he says, go, so they spoke to a real estate agent. Believe it or not, after a week or two, the real estate agent calls and says, I found you an apartment, $40,000.
Wow.
They couldn't believe their ears. But there's a catch. It's a 2-bedroom apartment.
Cash.
What's the catch? The owner of the apartment is a single man, an elderly man. And he's looking for someone to move into the apartment.
Shit.
So he's going to sell you the apartment for $40,000 on condition that he can continue to live in the apartment. And no matter how long he lives, after he dies, the apartment is yours. But in the meantime, you can move into one of the bedrooms, but he gets to stay in the other bedroom. He can stay in the apartment. Do you accept the deal? Now, this is a new couple just getting married. The last thing they want is some strange guy in the apartment that they don't know. But the rabbi says, go buy an apartment. So what are you supposed to do? So they said, we agree. And a week before the wedding, the old man died.
Wow.
The old man died a week before the wedding. And in the end, they got an apartment. They got an apartment in Bnei Brak. They got an apartment for $40,000.
Rabbi сказал тогда делать.
And the apartment belonged to them completely.
Умер, жалко же его.
Right?
Hashem
That was the deal. So he says, Al pi Torah asher yerucha. You have to follow the Torah that the Chachamim, the Chachamim, the rabbis, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. You gotta follow them. Okay. Listen to the next story. A famous story, a very well-known story, very famous story. In the city of Vilna. Where is Vilna? In Lithuania. Have you ever been to? I've been to Vilna. It's a very interesting city. I went to the house where the Vilna Gaon was. You go to the cemetery where the Vilna Gaon is, the Ger Tzedek, Reb Chaim Moser, the Posek Hador. Anyway, there was a lady, a couple, not a very wealthy, very poor couple, and she was cleaning the chicken for Shabbos. I guess it was Friday, and she wanted to cook the chicken, and there was a question about the chicken. Maybe a bone was broken or there was a bruise. So she said to her husband, I'm going to go ask the rabbi. The Vilna had a very prominent Rav, a very prominent rabbi. But he lives on the other side of town. I'm going to go ask the rabbi. Okay, go ask the rabbi. In the meantime, it was getting late, and the husband was getting nervous. And the husband, next door to where they lived, was the Vilna Gaon, who was a genius. The Vilna Gaon was a genius. So he goes to the Vilna Gaon, and he describes the bruise, and the Vilna Gaon says, it doesn't sound good. The chicken is not kosher. So he comes back home. Right then his wife comes back home, and she says, I got great news. The rabbi said the chicken is kosher. So he says, hey, you asked the rabbi says the chicken is kosher. I asked the Vilna Gaon says the chicken is not kosher. What are we supposed to do? So she went back to the rabbi, and she says to the rabbi, Rabbi, I got a problem. You said the chicken is kosher, but I asked the chief rabbi, the Vilna Gaon, and he said the chicken is not kosher. What's the story? Rabbi says, prepare the chicken. Tonight, the Vilna Gaon and I are going to come and join you for the meal.
Wow.
Okay. She goes home, she's preparing this chicken. The rabbi goes to the Vilna Gaon. He says to the Vilna Gaon, he says, listen, there's no question you're 1,000 times smarter. The Vilna Gaon was a genius. There's no question you're 1,000 times smarter than me. But I'm the rabbi. And if I say something and you contradict me, what does that say about me as a rabbi? It means I'm no rabbi. The community appointed me as the rabbi. So I have the responsibility. And everybody in the community has to follow what I say. That includes you. And I said the chicken is kosher. And I want you to come with me and taste this chicken tonight. And the Vilna Gaon said, okay. And they come into the house and they sit at the table, and this woman is so excited that these two great rabbis are there. As she serves the chicken, she knocks over the Shabbos candle, and in those days the candles were made of animal fat. And the candle falls right into the chicken and makes the whole thing treif.
Make you what?
Treif. Makes it all that goes. The candle fell into the chicken. The candle, the wax in those days of the candle was animal fat. It was not kosher.
Not kosher anymore.
Not kosher animal fat. And the hot candle fell right into the chicken that she was serving, and it made the whole thing treif. So the Vilna Gaon turned to the rabbi and he says, I just want you to know, it's not because I was right and you were wrong. I admit you're right. And I had no business, deciding. But because I said it's not kosher, in Shemayim they always protect me. But you should just know, he said to the rabbi, you were right, I was not.
What?
That you were right. The chicken probably was kosher. The Vilna Gaon said that. That you should just know that you were right. But the only reason why this accident happened was because in heaven they always protect me. Hashem always protects me. But I shouldn't be embarrassed.
Hashem protects him, so means
That he shouldn't be embarrassed. Because he said it wasn't kosher. So Hashem created a situation.
But the other rabbi was embarrassed, so it became like...
But he said to the other rabbi, you were right. It was kosher.
Both of them making happy.
If this thing wouldn't happen, they could eat it?
He would have eaten it, yes.
It's like they're eating the not kosher.
The rabbi says it's kosher. You see, in a community, in those days, the community had a rabbi. It wasn't like 5 rabbis. There was one rabbi in the community. And whatever that rabbi said went. And the Vilna Gaon, the husband, was wrong. The husband should have said, my wife went to ask the rabbi, but I couldn't wait. What do you say? Then the Vilna Gaon would have said, I'm not going to answer you at all.
Right now, why so many people say if it's doubt it's kosher or no, that's why we don't eat it when the rabbi says kosher or shahid said kosher, we don't eat now. How come at that case?
In those days, they weren't wealthy enough to throw things away. Today you have a question on a pot.
Yeah.
Some rabbis say, just get a new pot. That's wrong. You have to paskin what the shaila is. If the pot can be kosher, you have to kosher it. You know,
Even buying the meat, it's like
because
too
a
much.
lot of them don't know, so they
Yeah.
just say, it's easy just to say throw it away. But you shouldn't just throw it away. And in those days, it was very expensive. They couldn't afford to throw it away. So they didn't throw it away. Okay. One or two thoughts from last week, Parshas Re'eh, then I'm going to go because I didn't park very well. Here we go. Elul. Elul is the time we do slichot. We ask for mechila kapor for our averos, right? Can a non-Jew do teshuvah? A non-Jewish person violates one of the 7 mitzvahs of Noach. He violates it. Is there this concept for non-Jews, Hashamnu, Boganu, Gazalnu, can they do teshuvah?
I think so.
So the answer is no. Very interesting. They talk about it. They say there are 2 ways to relate to Hashem. One way is Hashem is king. If you come into the king's house and the king says, oh, you want to sit on my throne? You can sit on my throne. Are you allowed to sit on the throne? No. If a king is mochel on his kavod, if he forgives his honor, it doesn't work. It's not his to forgive. The other relationship to God is like a father and son. If a father says to his son, you want to sit in my chair? You can. Can the son sit in the chair? Yes. Because a father has that power. So Jews, when we relate to Hashem, we relate like a child to a father. A father has the power to forgive. The king doesn't. So the non-Jewish world relate to Hashem like a melech. And if you're like a melech, you don't have a king cannot forgive you for crimes against the state. The truth is the king has the power to forgive, but not to forgive his kavod. But Hashem does. So when you do an aveira, a father can forgive, bless you, but not a king. It says, Re'eh, look, singular, I'm giving in front of you. So the Gemara says that when a person does any mitzvah aveira, how do you have to think? As if the world is exactly balanced, 50-50. If I do one mitzvah, it tips the scales for good. If I do one aveira, it tips the scales for bad. So it says, Re'eh, look, whatever you're about to do can decide the fate of the world. The Vilna Gaon says, look today, forget about yesterday. Don't say, oh, I've done so many aveiras in the past, there's no hope for me. Every day is a new day. Rav Sternbuch says, don't look at those around you. Don't say, well, compared to everybody around me, I'm a big tzaddik. Doesn't work that way. Be a tzaddik because you're being a tzaddik, not because of compared to everybody else. Okay? Everybody, people are what they are, but, don't go by that. We talk about in Parshas Re'eh the mitzvah tzedakah. Very interesting. When we talk about the mitzvah tzedakah, it says open up your hand. It says poseach tiftach, open up your hand. There's an old saying that a person gives everybody the same. When the hand is closed, all the fingers are the same size. But when you open up the hand, each finger is a different size. Not all tzedakahs are the same. Rabbi Fran said a story that he once said at the Siyum Hashas, a very famous story that he once said. He says in Africa there's a very rare monkey that the zoos want to capture. And the zoos are looking for this monkey. But he's very hard to capture. But one thing is, the monkey likes spicy stuff. So what do? They build a box. And there's a little hole big enough for the monkey's hand to go in. And inside they put rice full of all the spices. What happens? The monkey sticks his hand in, grabs a bunch of the rice, and closes his hand. Now he can't get the hand out because he has a fist. In order to get the hand out, what does he have to do? He has to open his hand, but he doesn't want to open his hand because he wants the rice. So he says these monkeys, believe it or not, have their hand stuck in this box, and then the hunter comes and he's stuck in the box, refusing to let go, and he captures the monkey for the zoos. That's how they do it. He says sometimes in life, to save yourself, you have to open up your hand. If these monkeys would have just opened up their hand, they would have been caught and be in the zoo. But because they refuse to open up their hand, he says, sometimes you have to open up your hand. You have to give a little bit of tzedakah for Hashem to help you. Don't be a monkey and keep your hands closed. You have to open up your hand a little bit in order to have some, to have Yeshua. I mentioned, I think I said this to you 2 weeks ago, but I'll say it to you again. I don't know if you heard this. He says there was a doctor who had a sign in his office. I can cure any illness, $50. If you come and I cannot cure you, I'll give you $100. Okay. So a guy figures, you know what, I'm gonna trick this guy. Comes in, he says to the doctor, I have no taste. All the food tastes the same, I have no taste. He says, no problem. Nurse, bring me bottle 505. Brings him bottle 505, swallows it, it's pepper and spices. The guy goes, you're killing me. He says, okay, your taste buds are back, $50. Okay. Next day he comes into the doctor's office, he says, doctor, my memory, I just can't remember things. What's your name again? I just can't remember things. He says, I got you. Let me see what I can do. Nurse, bring me bottle 505. So the guy says, no way, I'm not drinking that again. He says, your memory is good. $50. Okay. Third day, guy comes into the doctor's office. He says, doctor, my eyesight, I don't know, everything's blurry, I can't see. So the doctor says, you're right. I can't fix that, you're right. So you win, here's $100. Doctor, you only gave me 50. Oh, your eyesight's working. Takes back that 50 and says, you owe me another 50. He says, everything depends on how you see the world, right? Depending on how you see the world, you can figure out.
I would say to the nurse, bring the bottle.
Just bring it, hold it up. What bottle number is that?
Drink it.
Drink it again.
No, this is 505.
505. He's not trusting it. He's not going to trust it. Okay?
It would be interesting.
He's not going to trust it. So, he talks about these type of things, how, life is so much of what we see and how we understand it and what kind of perspective we have. Okay. Let's see what else I can share with you over here. It talks about, just trying to think in Parshas Re'eh, it talks about being Ole Regel, people who came up to Yerushalayim and all the mitzvahs that were there for someone that was Ole Regel, and things of that nature. I'm just trying to see, I have about another minute over here. Let me see what more I can tell you over here. He brings down over here, Re'eh anochi nosim lefnechem hayom, I give to you today, Hachaim v'satov, life and good, and movas and ra. So it's interesting that the Torah describes life as black and white. Life, death, good or bad. There's no middle road. There's no middle of the road. Even though the Rambam was always known to take the middle road, he felt the Shvil HaZahav, he calls it, the golden path was